Good day to you. It's Lori, Mrs. Smith here, and we're talking about lesson 3.3, the distributive property. Our I can statement today says, I can use the distributive property. So if you can use it, I guess we better talk about it so you know what it is. Distributive property. I'm going to use mathematical language because I think it's good that you're exposed to it, because eventually, probably somewhere in your mathematical career, you're going to have to read it on your own and make sense of it. So let's put it down. It says, for every real number, A, B, and C, A parentheses B plus C equals AB plus AC. So, for every real number, that means rational or irrational. We did real numbers in chapter 1. And they're just saying anything A, B, or C that you could plug in. Notice that there's these parentheses here. And in fact, I'm going to put them in red just so they kind of stick out. Distributive property always has parentheses. And if you notice, on the other side of the parentheses, they have AB. Now they're smushed together. When they're smushed together, they mean, hopefully you're shouting at me, multiply, because they do. So you can see that on the outside you have A, on the inside you have B. So what happens is they distribute, or they kind of, give A to B, and these are smushed together too, which means multiply, so it ends up AB. And then they put a plus sign, and then they multiply A times C, because again, A is smushed on the outside, which means multiply, and you end up with AC. So in characteristics, in kind of easy terms, not mathematical jargon, it tells you to multiply the number outside the parentheses to both numbers inside the parentheses. And the biggest thing that you need to be careful of is watch your signs. Watch your signs. Always, and I just made this just a little squiggly, but let me erase and watch your signs. Always attach the sign before, and I'm going to underline that, that's important, the number when you multiply. All right, so let's see what that's all about. So let's do an example. 7 parentheses. I told you parentheses are going to be important. That's how you know it's distributive property. You're going to see those parentheses, and you're going to see a number smushed on the outside. So let me pick up my red pen. I'm going to go 7 times x. And 7 times x is 7x. Now I'm going to pick up my green pen, and I'm going to go 7 times, and of course I include that plus sign. So 7 times a positive 6. So that is a positive 42. And that's your answer, 7x plus 42. It's just an expression at this point. Some mistakes I see students commonly make would be something like this. Number 1, 8 parentheses x plus 4. And here's the biggest mistake I see students make. They do 8 times x, which is awesome, and then they put down plus 4. What didn't they do? They forgot to distribute that 8 over here. So this 8, and then you times it by 4, would be 32. So that's the mistake 1 I see. The other biggest mistake I see students making has to deal with watch your signs, the second part right here that we talked about. It would be something like this, -3 parentheses x minus 6. And so they distribute -3 times x, and usually they're not too bad there. They get -3x. But here, it's a -3 times a -6. So a -3 times a -6 would be a positive 18, but I see lots of students make it a negative 18, and that's where we have to go, it's going to be a positive 18. So be careful. Those are two mistakes I see made all the time. So it says when you have 5 parentheses x minus 3, you must multiply 5 by x and negative 3. That's that and part. That's that part we're talking about here, number 1, that people make mistakes on. And then if you have something that has lots of variables in it, and say you have variables that go in decreasing order. So it says always write polynomials in decreasing order of exponents. So see here I have, let me pick up the orange. I have a term here. I have 3x squared. I have another term here, 5x with that positive sign. And then I have another term here, plus 7. Now, within those terms, this is a 2. There's nothing here, but I could put in a 1. It's that ghostly Gladys thing. And then there's no variable here, okay? So you would have to go 2, and then 1, and then nothing. So that's what it means writing in decreasing order. So example, if I had something like this, I have x squared plus 6x to the third plus 7x plus 8 plus 3x to the fifth. You're going to look at each of these individually, and I'm going to kind of put each one in orange. So there, whoops, orange. Let's try that again. There we go, orange. So here's one term. Here's another term. I'm putting boxes around all the terms. Here's another one. Here's another one. And here's another one. And I chose to attach those signs in front of them. Next, you're going to look at the exponents. There's a 2, there's a 3. There's nothing here, so I'm going to put in a 1. There isn't a variable there. And here's a 5. So if I were to rewrite this in decreasing order, starting with the largest, I would start with 3x to the fifth. And then there was no 4, but there's a 3, so plus 6x to the third, plus x squared, plus 7x, plus 8. Now, I believe we already talked about this. This 8 has a special name, and it is called a constant. Just fancy for number, but kind of remember that. All right, and then when you have a negative outside of here, this is another ghostly Gladys. This actually means negative 1. So negative 1 times that. That's going to be important as we look at some things. So let's try out some examples. Here we go. I'm moving on to page 8. So number 1, 6 parentheses x plus 2. So first, it means multiply. They're smushed together. I'm going to multiply 6 times x. And 6 times x is 6x. Then I'm going to multiply, did I do the second color in green? I did. Couldn't remember. Christmas colors. X, or 6 times a positive 2. 6 times a positive 2 is a positive 12. So the distributive property. Here we go. Number 2. 3 parentheses x squared plus 5. So it's x squared, doesn't really change anything. 3 times x squared would be 3x squared. And then I have a 3 times a 5, and 3 times a 5 is a plus 15. All right, let's do the next one. I'm going to kind of add some negatives in this time. So here we go, number 3. 8 parentheses negative 3x plus 2y. Ooh, I also added a variable. Again, doesn't change a thing. So I'm going to do 8 times negative, remember to attach the sign, 8 times negative 3x, which would be negative 24x. And then 8 times a positive 2y. 8 times a positive y would be a positive 16y. Here we go. Number 4. Negative 3 parentheses 2x minus 5. So again, I'm going to circle this one. You're going to take that negative 3 times a 2x. So negative 3 times a 2x is a negative 6x. and then I do a -3 times a -5. That's one of those mistakes I see a lot, but you're not going to make that mistake. You know a negative times a negative is a positive, and so we make it positive 15. Here we go, number 5. -9 times -2y minus, or 2x, excuse me, minus 2y. So again, -9 times a -2x, which would be a positive 18x. And then I have a -9 times a -2y, so it'd be plus 18y. All right, one more, and then I'm going to change it up 2 different ways, and then we'll be done for the day. So number 6 would be that negative parentheses x plus 7. So I wanted to do one of these so you can see it. So again, this is kind of like that ghostly lattice. It's actually a -1. Actually a -1. Sorry about that. So you're going to do -1 times x, which would be -1x, or you could just write -x, because again, it's that ghostly lattice. And then -1 times 7, which is a -7. So you could certainly write it like this first one. Probably you would see that second one more often, but either would be acceptable. All right, so let me change it just a little bit. 2 more. Number 7. What if I did something like this? Parentheses, -2x plus 7, and then I have a -5 afterwards. Now, sometimes you will see those. I do have to say that this probably isn't the best way to write it, because it almost looks like it's subtracting 5, but it actually means multiply. So technically, probably it would be best if it had some parentheses around it as well. But I just want to show you that the number to multiply could be on the back side at the end of it. So I have -5 times a -2x, which would be a positive 10x. And then I have a -5 times a 7, which is a -35. So don't let that fool you if it shows up at the end. Again, like I said, parentheses probably would be a little bit better around it so you don't get it mixed up with a subtracting of 5. But don't be alarmed if you see it like that. All right, and then number 8, let's do one more. And this is -2 times -2x plus 5c minus 12. Oh boy. Now you have 3 terms. And so what do? You just do it 3 times. Okay, so -2x, or -2 times -2x, which would be a 4x. You have a -2 times a 5c, which would be a -10c. And then you have, let's pick up a third color, -2 times a -12, which would be positive 24. Now, I do want to write here that usually if you see something like this, usually they tell you to put it in alpha order, meaning in the order of the alphabet to keep things organized. So if that's the case, you would probably put -10c first, then you would put the plus 4x, and then the constant 24 would just go at the end. So that's probably there. And then, like I said, I might just write the note that the distributive property can also be at the end. So there you have it. Distributive property. Show me your knowledge. Talk to you soon.